What's going on, guys? It's Jesse here with my friend Greg.
Hello.
Say hi. So Greg and I, we kind of are just getting to know each other through Karen, and we have we had a couple classes together? This is our first one. I think it's our first one.
I think this is our first one.
Yeah, it's our first class together. So we have a class at Karen called History and Doctrine of the Triune God, which is a very interesting class.
It's a type.
It is very interesting to learn church history, but yeah, just Greg is just someone I honestly don't know you super well. Just to be honest, but
It's okay.
I know I've heard you talk, and I know you're passionate about God. I know you're passionate about kids. So yeah, I'm excited to do this with you. And
me too.
Yeah. So Greg, just before we start, what grade are you in? You're at what school are you at? I know.
Well,
pretty obvious.
Grade,
you're in the same school.
School is easy. That's Karen. Grade is more complicated. Technically, I'm a senior, but it's my third year at Karen.
Okay.
So I have 3 semesters to go after this one.
Nice. And what are you getting your degree in?
My dual level, so a bachelor's in Bachelor's of Science in Christian Studies, and then a master's in Divinity.
Okay. And where are you from?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So
I didn't tell you, I just saw Sight and Sound Moses this Saturday. So I was up in the old Lancaster town.
Yeah, Sight and Sound's like 15 minutes from my house.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
Oh, man.
I drive past there regularly.
Yeah. It's probably great tourism too, with like all the shops around it.
Yeah,
I'm sure
it's huge for industry.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, Greg's pretty local at Karen. And Greg, so what is something that you are thankful for today? We'll start off pretty lighthearted.
I think definitely I'm thankful it's raining today, and that's nice. We have had some beautiful weather. It was great last night at the children's ministry I run, Kid Zone. We were able to get outside. So I was thankful for the warm weather. That was great. Now thankful for the rain, which replenishes the earth and sustains us. So
yeah, that's good to be thankful for the rainy days, because I'm a sun guy. I love the warm weather.
You're out of Jersey near the beach, right?
Yeah. So that makes sense, because when it's nice and sunny, we can go to the beach. But, it's important to be thankful for the rain.
Yeah.
Now, do you like to watch movies during the rain? What do you do during a rainy day?
Well, I'm in school, so typically homework.
Yeah.
But if I have free time, reading, or I'm more of a video games than a movies guy.
Okay.
But
what games you play?
Overwatch, Mario Kart, and Minecraft.
Yeah, we gotta play Mario Kart.
Yeah,
do you play on Switch?
Good. Yes.
Oh, bro, I love Mario Kart on Switch. We'll have to get a good time. That's
yes.
Fun. Yes, that's awesome. So, so who are some of your favorite professors at Karen? What have you learned from them?
2 would probably be Dr. Luther and Dr. Cheney.
Cheney's great. Yeah.
Cheney's great.
I've never had Luther, but yeah.
Yeah. Luther, I had him for Job, and I have him right now for Hebrew.
Okay.
And the humility and the care that he takes when approaching the Bible, particularly his expert area is wisdom literature, has been really impactful as I've thought about some of those areas. And then Dr. Cheney, he's got so much experience, so much wisdom, that he's just a great resource as I prepare to head into ministry, and I always appreciate his commentary, especially as I'm in preaching with him right now.
Yeah, homiletics. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, I like Cheney a lot too, because he's always shared like personal stories of when he first became a pastor. And I think he went to like a rural area and how hard that was for him, and just the practical aspect is something you can draw some treasures from that. So
definitely,
that's awesome. Yeah. So Karen, I'm at Karen. I'm in my senior year as well. So, are you hitting that point where you're like, I can't wait to graduate?
Yes, very much so.
Me too.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, Greg, if you could share just a short testimony of how did you come to know the Lord, and what was that like for you as growing up, and were you in a Christian home, not? And how'd that work?
So I grew up in a Christian home. My dad's a pastor. My mom did children's ministry. My dad did children's ministry for all the times I was in kids ministry.
Nice.
And so I came to faith through the children's ministry at my church.
Oh, okay.
I was in 2nd grade. I went to our Wednesday night program. We called it Blast.
Nice.
And it was a blast. And one night we were going over the gospel, and I'm just like, I think think I believe this. And
wow.
so, prayed the prayer, all that.
Yes.
Yeah. So looking back, that's what I point to as like moment of salvation type of things. And then as I've grown up, then I've felt a real call from God to serve in the ministry. Yeah. And so I'm pursuing that.
Awesome. Yeah. Similar to me, I was in a Christian home, saved as a young kid. And I think statistics show, I don't know, Greg, if you know the stats and stuff, I don't really know exactly, but I think most people accept Christ before 12.
Yeah, right? I've heard like 12 or 14, like there's a real age range that giving people the gospel, getting people to know the gospel at a young age has a real impact on someone's faith in their life. Yeah. And not that, adult conversions or adult evangelism is pointless. Yeah. But that children's ministries is especially fruitful and valuable in the life of the church. Yeah,
I definitely agree. And, the Bible talks about in Deuteronomy, like the importance of, the parents, impressing the commandments of God on their heart as their kids when they walk and when they sit down and when they go to bed, like just constantly having that word in front of them as a kid, sets the direction of their life to love the Lord with all their heart and soul. And so that's huge. Yeah. So what are some scriptures that I guess you would think of that have really impacted your view of children's ministry?
Well, I think the one you referenced there, I think it's in Deuteronomy, the exact verse escapes me, but like, bind these commandments on your hands and on your foreheads, like just in everything that you do, be pointing things back to God. Yeah. And I think sometimes you get this idea that children's ministry is, holy babysitting, if you will. Yeah. But it's more than that. It's about bringing people into a knowledge, into a new discovery of who God is. And so in everything that we should do, we should be pointing back to God's word. Yeah. The Proverbs talk about train up a child in the way that he should go.
That's right.
And that I think is especially builds on that theme from Deuteronomy that children's ministry is vital because it helps set people on a good path. Yeah. And the last one I think would probably be the story of the prodigal son in Luke 17, I think it's 17. Yeah. Just children's ministry, and now I'm not an expert on this. I'm a children's intern at a church, not an expert by any means. Sure. But I think in a lot of times children's ministry can often feel like a very fruitless endeavor. Yeah. Because are they listening? Are they paying attention? Sometimes I spend half my lesson just telling kids to be quiet and pay attention. Yeah. I remember one lesson I was teaching my preschool class on Wednesday nights, and one of the girls was running around and trying to run out of the room. And so a volunteer, kind of lunged to, prevent her from running away. Yeah. And it's like, so I hear a loud thud go on behind all the kids. It's like, one of my friends hits the floor and everyone's turned. It's like, oh man, the whole lesson lost. Yeah. And what I found, especially here at Cairn, hearing a lot of people's testimonies, there's a lot of kids, there's a lot of guys who started young, grew up in a Christian home. Yeah. And then at some point they had somewhat of a crisis of faith of just, do I actually believe this or not? Yeah. And some of them had like a definite prodigal period in which they were wandering far from the Lord. Sure. And then they returned. Yes. And so I think there's a song by Ecclesia Houston, I believe, Your labor is not in vain. That's children's ministry. It's good. You will not always see the fruit of it. You can think of all the people who taught the prodigal son. Wow. And it's like, now he's gone, and it's like, great, did we waste that time? Wow. And that time's not wasted. Yeah. Children's ministry isn't a waste. It's a seed planting endeavor. Wow. That's really good, because I never thought of the prodigal son like that. Like, imagine all the people in the community, that knew this guy. He's it's a parable, but still, like, it's it represents a lot of reality that Christians walk away, and
there were so many people that probably invested in him. And I think that verse is powerful too. He's in the pig pen, right? Feeding the pigs.
Yeah.
And it says he came to his senses and he wanted to go home. Like, he wouldn't have wanted to go home if he didn't know the Father, if he didn't have that foundation.
Like, you can't come to your senses if you don't have senses to begin with.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So, yeah, that is really huge. That actually makes me think a lot, like, about that story. And I see that in children's ministry. Yeah, that's huge. So, yeah, what are some other ways that you kind of fight against discouragement? Because, that song definitely, like, nothing's in vain. Is there any other things that help you kind of fight the lack of seeing abundant fruit sometimes?
I think you have to fight. I grew up in a more Methodist context, and at least where I grew up, there's always an emphasis, like, after summer camp, they'd want to come forward and say, we had this many salvations.
Yeah.
And I really try to push back against that.
Yeah.
Because you have people, kids are impressionable, and you have kids who are going to stand up just because they see everyone else standing up and raising their hand. And especially some of the those altar call type of things, I try to avoid those because I find that it's pressure.
Yeah.
Like, I struggled for a while of was I actually saved? Because it's like I could see sin in my life, and it's, feeling the Spirit moving, and it's like, oh, well, maybe I need to get saved again.
Yeah. And
that's not good theology.
Yes.
And so kind of trying to just get away from that emphasis on numbers.
Yeah, that's huge.
Because the numbers are really kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, not that they're totally irrelevant. It does matter. Like, if, you're continually less kids are coming because they all hate it, that's a sign that you might want to think about some things.
I want to change something,
Yeah. But whether you're doing children's ministry for 100 kids or for 3 kids, great is the rejoicing in heaven over one soul.
That's right.
That repents.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, one of the ways I've tried to fight discouragement is not playing that numbers game, especially with salvations, because ultimately what's going to show whether or not those salvations are genuine is how they live their life years down the road.
Yeah.
And so while some of our, like, love of business culture in the church might want to make us have this, like, data and analytics, I find that they're actually not helpful and can lead to some discouragement when things don't go the way you think they should go.
Yeah. The temptation to, I like how you said the business culture influence, like the temptation to, what is success? Even that question. That question is huge. Like, what is successful ministry? Is it, this many people come to Christ, or is it that you faithfully planted seeds? And one of the things God's really helped me with, because there's always the temptation to want, bigger, and, is God rewards faithfulness and obedience way more than visible things.
Exactly.
Right? And it's that faithful planting, it's that faithful seed, it's that faithful, also something that helps me fight discouragement is the promise from God that his word does not return void.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you could have kids diving on the ground and, telling them to listen for 20 minutes, but that word is in there. It gets into their hearts. And it's amazing how, one of the things I found with kids too is sometimes they'll, like, remember little things that you did not expect them to remember. Did you ever have that happen, Greg?
Oh, all the time. Each week, since I run a weekly kids program, each week I typically ask, like, what did we learn about last week?
Yeah.
And sometimes I get a good answer. Most of the time it's like, no. One time this past year we've been going through the book of Acts. So we've been talking a lot about Paul.
Sure.
And in my first and second grade class, I asked, who have we been learning about? One kid shoots his hand up, and he's not from a church background at all.
Yeah.
And he's like, Moses.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that wasn't right at all. What we had learned about last year was Exodus.
Oh, okay.
So he remembered
in there,
Moses.
Yeah.
And so you get all sorts. With kids, you get just some random answers, but like especially when I ask review questions week by week, it's like, okay, bits and pieces are sticking there.
Yes.
We can't control what they're going to remember when they're 50.
Yeah.
But I think, so it's not as much, I don't focus as much on do they remember every single thing. No, I'm not trying to make this like a school.
Yeah.
But what's their overall experience? What are their feelings?
Yeah, did they feel loved,
Yeah, like, at 50, are they going to remember any specific lesson or thing I do? Probably not. Are they going to remember that they had a great time?
Yeah.
They might.
Yeah.
In fact, I'd say that probably they'll remember. And so it's that kind of the building that overall experience that I would focus more on than like, can you recite the 12 apostles?
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say, everything in moderation type of an idea.
Sure.
That's not to say, I think it is important, and I go over, especially with my older kids, my 3rd through 5th grade class, can they actually tell me the gospel without me prompting it?
Yeah.
Because find and have good feelings and warm memories, but what is comforting in times of trouble or times of doubt is not warm memories, but the word of God and the truths of the gospel.
Yeah, that's huge, because you have to have that balance, right, of feelings, but also like, did they really remember the scriptures? As I was a kid, my parents actually made me before bed say the books of the Bible.
Oh, wow.
And say the fruit of the Spirit almost every night before bed. And so, I was just 3 years old, 4 years old.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Maybe older, actually. I don't know. But, just really young. And my parents, I'm super thankful to have that foundation.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to talk about, too, we talked a little bit earlier about kind of the when you're saved as a kid, but you don't really, are you really saved?
Yeah.
I think a lot of Christians struggle with that. Because a lot of people, like the statistics show, they accept Christ before 12, and sometimes it's even like before 8 years old. So I don't really remember too many things in my life before 8 years old. But I was actually on the phone with my cousin yesterday. He's in the military, and he's was telling me, he's like, I really struggle. I've never really had this crazy running away from God thing, and all these people I look at online, and stories I've heard is people, they do drugs and they, doing all this stuff, and then boom, they come to God. And he's like, I don't have that story. And I was trying to tell him, like, it's just as valuable, if not sometimes even more powerful, because you stayed with the Lord your whole time. And I mean, I wouldn't want to say the word more, actually, but because God writes everyone's story different, but it's so powerful for Christians to faithfully kind of walk with the Lord their whole life, and that's what happens a lot in children's ministry.
Yeah, I think you do see that. I mean, that's more of my story. I don't, I think there's sometimes pressure to like beef up your testimonies, that you have something like really awesome. And it's like, you're not going to talk to a 10-year-old who's like, I was doing hard drugs, I was partying every night. Like, that's just not 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
Or we hope it's not 10-year-olds.
At least not in your ministry.
But there's, every salvation is significant. Everyone's story is significant, and it's something that God wrote.
Yeah.
And so with people who don't have that dramatic thing, I think we need to reframe our expectations for what a testimony is.
Yeah.
When you look at adult conversions, it is often that.
Yeah.
When you look at child conversions, it's rarely that, because a lot of times it's you grew up in a Christian home, so your habits, the way you do things in life, those are already informed by the gospel.
Yeah.
And so when the things you're doing are already informed by the gospel, it doesn't show as a bigger change when you suddenly realize the meaning of everything that you do, which is the gospel. I remember I once went to my cousin's baptism service, and he was talking about like all of these things he did before he was saved, and then now that he's saved, he does all these things. I was looking at him as he's up there before the church. I'm like, really? Like, because it's my cousin. I thought he was a pretty good stand-up guy.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get out of that feeling that we need to have this dramatic moment of conversion.
Yeah.
That there's something just as holy about faithfulness in the same direction for a long time.
Yeah.
What we should do is, I think, prioritize one or the other there.
Yeah.
The error in like the prodigal son passage is the older brother.
Just thinking that. Yep.
Yeah, the older brother says, well, it was better that I stuck here the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's just not true. It's good that the prodigal returned, and it's good that the older brother stayed.
Yes.
What we should be rejoicing in is that both of them are with the Father.
That's right.
So I think sometimes we in our sinfulness feel like, oh man, we missed out by becoming Christians in young age. Like it's like, I missed out on all like the parties in high school, all of these things. Because what we don't often see in testimonies is sometimes the consequences of those decisions.
Yeah, and the regret.
And so I think instead of saying, oh man, I wish I had a better testimony, I think our response should be more of thankfulness that God spared us from a lot of things that could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah, and we both needed the blood of Jesus just as much. We were both born depraved, dead in our trespasses, needing, it's not like this person needed more of the blood of Jesus that did this sin than me, all have sinned, right? So
your heart, there's not different degrees of dead. You're dead or you're not dead.
Exactly. That's right. So Greg, if someone was just going to enter ministry, specifically children's ministry, what advice would you give them?
I suppose the advice I would give is find some people who've done it for a while to mentor you.
Okay.
I have benefited tremendously from watching my dad do children's ministry for all those years.
Yeah.
Because it's given me a good system where I can somewhat default to what he does.
Sure.
And now just defaulting to stuff is not the goal.
Yeah.
And what I'm working on now as I'm a student is figuring out what do I like from what my dad did and what would I want to do differently because I'm not my dad.
Yeah, finding your wheelhouse.
But I think when you're starting out, it is critical to find people who've done it for a while, who know the ropes, who can give you just good models to follow, good advice, those types of things.
Yeah.
I've benefited tremendously. I'm the pastoral intern over at Core Creek, and there's so many people at that church who have poured into me as I've worked at leading our children's ministry.
That's huge.
And that's been huge for me.
Yeah. So that's something I'm honestly working on right now I just started youth ministry. Yeah. Youth pastor like 7 months ago. And, I've always been in youth group and, loved youth group and even taught at youth groups, my youth group when I was a kid. But right now I'm just trying to draw my resources and stuff from people that have been in youth ministry for a while. Like Matt Micklack, who goes here, he's a fountain of wisdom. So that's definitely.
I think sometimes people are scared because they're like, oh, I've never done this before.
Yeah.
But if this is what God's got for you, He's gonna give you what you need to do it.
Yeah.
I think of my grandma went into youth ministry at 67.
Wow.
And it's like,
wow.
Yeah.
I think Moses was 80, right?
Moses was 80, but he wasn't quite leading a youth group. But for her, most youth pastors, what do you look for no, she's not a youth pastor, she's a volunteer. Just clarifying.
Sure.
But what do you look for with most youth people? They're young, energetic.
Mm-hmm.
She's not that. She's a grandma.
Yeah.
But, was she perfect when she started? No. Is she perfect now?
Yeah.
No. When you go into children's ministry, is it going to be perfect? No.
Yeah.
No, we're heading towards the end of my second year leading our Wednesday night program. First year was really rough.
Yeah.
I was new. Lots of people were new. Things were rough.
Yeah.
You learn.
Yeah.
Don't quit. So, that kind of just perseverance, keeping at it.
Yeah.
If it's something you're passionate about and it's something that God's calling you to, He'll lead you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Amen. Yeah, that's powerful, like perseverance, because I think a lot of people, statistics are crazy about people that stop ministry.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it's like 3 years.
It's 3 years for senior pastor. For youth pastor, I've heard 18 months.
Really? I didn't know that.
Average youth pastoral last.
Oh, that's crazy.
And I can imagine children's pastors not far behind because kids are challenging.
They are. I taught some junior high. A couple times I've left crying.
Yeah.
I left in tears.
Oh, yeah.
So discouraged. And I actually remember one time I I was teaching through First John, and no one was listening. I was just trying to get their attention the whole time, and I left like basically almost in tears. And one of my mentors, and someone who's like a church leader, I told him, I was just like, I just feel like I failed. I didn't say what I wanted to, and just no one was listening. And he just like looked at me and he said, if you shared God's word, you did not fail. Like, you can't mess up, All right, we're good.
Yeah.
He said you can't mess up, and that encouraged me so much. So
like it's reframing our expectations for what success looks like. Success is that the gospel was shared.
Yes.
There's stuff, my youth pastor, there's stuff in children's ministry that I remember that like wasn't even the main point of the lesson.
Yeah.
But there's things that just stick there that somehow lodge, and we can't control that. That's God's job.
Yeah. Amen.
So
that's good.
Yeah.
So another question I wanted to ask is, what are some of your like hobbies? What are some things you do when you're not doing ministry? I guess while you're busy with school and stuff, and you mentioned a little bit of video games, but is there anything else you like to do just for fun?
Mainly school. I mean, school's not for fun. I do a lot of schoolwork.
Sure.
I have a girlfriend. I enjoy hanging out with her.
Yeah.
What else? Read. I like board games. I like video games. I enjoy hanging out with friends. Cool. So those types of things are more hobbies.
Okay.
I try to keep my hobbies to be, and I hunt.
Oh, there you go. I've never hunted. I've always wanted to.
It's a great time. It's very restful.
Yeah.
And then very exciting when you get to shoot something.
And
then delicious. It's got everything you want. It's got food. It has killing something. It has, I try to keep my hobbies somewhat separate from ministry stuff, so it feels like I'm not always doing some ministry thing.
Yes. Yeah. That's same with me. I'm trying to get into I play tennis. I'm trying to get into disc golf. That's a big hit right now.
Yeah.
So I think that would be fun. But it's good to have other things to do as well. So I want to ask this question as well. Do you write your own messages, or do you use a curriculum? And is there a benefit to one or the other?
I think there's benefits and drawbacks of both. I use all my own stuff primarily.
Oh, good. Okay. Cool.
The real benefit of that is that it fits my style.
Yeah.
That I have. It fits my program.
Sure.
Most curriculum publishers, a lot of them are bigger churches and stuff who are just putting out stuff, and so they're tailoring things for their programs.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah.
For them.
Yeah.
Whenever you use curriculum, you gotta adapt it to what you're doing. So the real benefit of writing your own stuff is it fits what you're doing. It fits your teaching style. It fits the materials you got.
Yeah.
There are some drawbacks though. It's a time-intensive effort.
Mm-hmm.
For my preschoolers right now, I have been using. It's not a video curriculum, but I've been using just kind of videos another church has put on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
And it saves me a ton of time on a preschool lesson because some of the lesson is just built in there, and kids love videos.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
So using your own stuff is very much a time-intensive effort. The other drawback is it's really hard then to find people to teach.
Yeah.
So I do most of the teaching of the ministry I lead, mainly because I'm the pastoral intern. But on the week, it's hard for me to find people to teach, and then I can't just hand them, say, here's what you're doing this week.
Yeah.
Teach the lesson. It's much more of, I'm handing them a prep.
Sure.
Which is time, and you need some skill for.
Yeah.
So, there's benefits and drawbacks to curriculum, to not doing your own stuff, not using curriculum.
Yeah.
The benefit of curriculum is it's easy. You can hand it to anyone, and if you have good curriculum, it's hard to mess up a good gospel-centered message.
Yeah. So Greg, real quick, we're gonna take a quick pause, and we'll be right back.
Okay. So as I was saying, the benefits of curriculum, it's easy. You can hand it to anyone, and they'll just be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
It allows for a lot more variety is what I found. last night I had one of my volunteers teaching for me.
Oh, nice.
And she did like a science experiment to like illustrate the gospel.
Oh, wow.
It was really cool. Kids were fascinated. It was wonderful.
I want to see that.
Yeah, it was cool. But that's not my wheelhouse.
No.
And so
not a mad scientist.
Yeah. So I rarely come up with those types of things. I tend to lean more towards like dramatic stuff and like acting things out, those types of things.
Yeah.
And so a curriculum can offer a lot of insights and ideas you might not come up with on your own.
Sure.
Because someone else or a whole team of people is writing them.
Yeah.
The other thing is if you get good curriculum, which is the key, you have to find good curriculum. There's a lot out there and it's not all good.
Some heresy.
Oh yeah. It allows you to just plan out things and know that you got a full scope. So like this year we've been going through Acts with my children's ministry.
Okay.
And so I went through the book of Acts and chose, I want to tackle these stories and not these stories.
Yeah.
And curriculum can be really helpful. I could have found a curriculum for Acts,
sure.
which would have told me, here's a bunch of really good narrative units, some good stories for kids.
Yeah.
And so it's the benefit of you get more eyes on it, all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
The downsides of curriculum, if you just read off the curriculum, it's going to sound flat and terrible.
Yeah.
Growing up, we always used curriculum for Vacation Bible School.
Uh-huh.
And we got the benefits. It gave us some design themes. It gave us what lessons we were going to do. It gave us some songs, all sorts of great stuff.
Yeah.
But we always made sure to adapt whatever we were doing for the lesson from what the curriculum was doing. Oftentimes, even we would just take whatever verse they wanted us to do and then do our own lesson based off of that.
Okay.
Because if you're just reading from a book, it's going to sound like you're reading from a book.
Yeah, they can tell. And kids can tell. Kids can tell if you prepared.
Yeah. The kids can tell. And they'll likely say it. Kids can be brutal.
They're blunt.
So with curriculum, as much as there is some ease, there's also you have to adapt it or it's probably not going to sound great in my experience. The other downside is it might not be tailored well for your ministry or for your space. So like we do our lesson times on the stage at Core Creek because that's a good spot to have everyone.
Wow.
We're not in a classroom. So, and I don't have a ton of power outlets. I don't have a projector. I have a TV that I set up.
Yeah.
So there's just some things which don't work as well. Mm-hmm. It would not work for me to put like up a puppet show or anything. I don't got the space for it.
Yeah. I used to do puppets. It just gave me a flashback. Yeah. It was funny. We had the 3 puppets named D, Cy, and Paul for disciple. I remember that. Isn't that funny?
There is that part of children's ministry.
I forget that.
Yeah. So with curriculum, it really depends on what are the needs for your ministry. For my ministry, I'm in school, so doing lesson prep is what I do. It's what I like to do.
Yeah.
So I like to write my own curriculum because I think it works the best.
Yeah.
But the church I go to back in Lancaster, we use curriculum for our Sunday schools.
Sure.
Because it just creates a lot of ease.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think the most important thing, if you probably do use curriculum, is to make sure you get it in your heart and you're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just reading something that's not something that you first, was something you were really meditating on or thinking about, it's hard to like all of a sudden get passionate. You got to let it kind of overflow out. So when you write a lesson, that's why I love to write messages too, for like youth group and stuff, and is that you start to really like kind of make friends with the message and make friends with get the heart behind it.
Yeah. And when kids see your passion, in my experience, like that often makes them passionate.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we think that kids ministry's got to be all loud, all like huge and flashy all the time.
Yeah.
I found the kids are sometimes the most locked in after being a bit loud and a bit crazy, when I get quiet. Yeah. When I get softer, when I get serious, because then they naturally pull in and it's like, this matters.
Yeah. You touched on something really important. It's that sometimes, like you said in the beginning, people sometimes view children's ministry as like, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
But something I've learned and is that people like rise to the level of expectation that you put on them. So if you expect kids to just totally get nothing, and you're not going to teach them well. But if you expect them to be like the next generation that changes the world, and that's going to be leaders in the church one day and change families, like you're going to be more serious about it. And so, yeah, like if you like, how many people, think kids can handle serious things? Probably very little. People say, oh, they can't. But there's evidence there where you get into a serious moment and they're with you and you can sense it. So,
well, and the unfortunate thing, like, kids are going through serious things.
Yeah.
Like, I have kids in my ministry that have lost parents.
Wow.
Or that are coming from like homes where there's a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
Like, they deal with serious things. So if we present them a gospel that's totally unserious, how's that going to equip them for what's serious?
Yeah.
And the other thing is, like, in youth group, you're trying to get serious. You want to get serious. You want to get deeper.
Yeah.
And so it's a rough transition if we go from kids ministries, all fun, all energy all the time, to now we've got to send a small group.
Yeah, good point.
Like, the goal of children's and youth ministry is to prepare adult Christians.
Yeah.
To like work with the parents to form young Christians.
Yeah. And
so with children's ministry, I kind of focus on like, are these kids going to be ready for youth group?
Yeah.
So with that, I'm an amateur. So take everything I say with a grain of salt.
Sure.
One of the things I try to do is I focus a lot more on stories than on kind of the abstract theology points.
Okay.
Because kids really connect with stories.
Yeah.
Everyone connects with stories.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, just on a child development thing, they're not ready to get like the typological implications of the Exodus.
So I don't even know if I get that.
Exactly. So what's more important, that they know all the different ways in which the tabernacle points to the temple, which points to New Jerusalem, or that they know that there was a tabernacle? So like with my preschoolers, I haven't done like a deep dive into Romans.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to get it.
No.
That's way too abstract.
Yeah.
What they do get is a story like the prodigal son and the father who loves us even when we do things that are wrong.
Yeah.
And so I really focus on the stories, knowing then that we have a great youth pastor at Cork Creek who's then going to help show them some of the deeper meanings behind the stories.
Sure.
But I find that it's hard to get to some of those deeper meanings when you have youth who don't even know the stories.
Yeah. Yeah, they have that foundation of the stories.
So it's like we've talked about before, it's building a seed.
Yeah.
It's building that foundation.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're not just going to stay with a slab of concrete in the ground. That other people are going to come and build on that.
Yeah.
And God, most importantly, is going to come and build on that.
That's right. That's good. Yeah, it reminds me of someone told me once, we feed sheep, we don't feed giraffes. Feed sheep, not giraffes. And keeping things, at a level where people can digest them is really wise.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I teach a different lesson for each of my 3 age groups because it has to be.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm going over with a 3rd grader is not what a 4-year-old's going to understand.
Sure.
I think one of the things with kids ministry, look at what schools are doing.
Yeah.
Like, they don't teach it. They don't run a kindergarten like they run a 5th grade.
Yeah.
Why would the church do that?
Yeah. Yeah. There's wisdom in that.
Yeah.
We can see education, with all its flaws. It's not perfect.
No, by no means perfect.
But they have, in a certain sense, mastered, development, and they study these things even from a scientific, psychological standpoint, and we can look at that and see, okay, the brain develops in these ways, and this is probably the best, thing to do here, and
Yeah, and I don't think you need to, be an expert psychologist to be a children's pastor.
For sure.
I think oftentimes when finding volunteers, parents are great because they know at least they've been through stuff with their kids to know how some of that affects other kids.
Yeah.
But there can be some wisdom there, and some of that just looking at how the world views children, what they've found, science and education, and adapting some of that for the purposes of the Lord.
Yeah, amen.
So yeah.
So yeah, we'll come to a close now, Greg. And you shared so many good things, and I'm really, I'm actually starting to get passionate about a lot of things of children's ministry just through this conversation. And I actually have an opportunity to teach children's ministry in a few weeks from now, and I haven't done it in forever. Nice. So now I've got a fresh fire for that.
Oh yeah.
Thanks to what you were sharing. So yeah, I'll close. Kind of, this is a speed round.
Okay.
And so I'm just gonna ask you like a bunch of questions, and you're gonna respond as quick as possible.
Got it.
All right, ready? All right. Do you say pork or Taylor ham?
Pork.
Good answer. Xbox or PlayStation?
Never had either. I'm a Nintendo guy.
Okay, Nintendo. I had PlayStation. That was
nice.
I actually used to have Xbox, and I switched. Do you prefer watching movies or reading books?
Books.
Books. Favorite TV show?
Probably Phineas and Ferb. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I am very much into the competitive Overwatch scene for esports.
That's so funny. I was talking about Phineas and Ferb with someone yesterday. My mom used to play the CD in the car, so I know all the songs. Phineas and Ferb, and SIMP squirrels in my pants. Yeah, I love Phineas and Ferb, man. Favorite book of the Bible?
Ecclesiastes or Job.
Favorite verse?
Ecclesiastes 12:13.
What does it say?
The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of man.
That's a good one. And sorry, were you saying something about Ecclesiastes and Job? I think I cut you off.
I just like wisdom literature.
Okay, wisdom lit with Luther.
Oh
yeah. Favorite pizza topping?
Bacon.
Bacon. Okay. Do you have any siblings?
I have 2 younger siblings, a sister who's a senior in high school and a brother in 8th grade.
Great. Awesome. Well, Greg, thanks so much for coming on today and
doing
this kind of last second spontaneous podcast. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. So how can people be praying for you in your ministry going forward?
Well, pray for, I think, energy for me and especially for my volunteers. Children's ministry can take it out of you. And really just pray that we would continue to sow seeds, that people would continue to have that first encounter with the gospel, that God would use what we're doing to sprout mature Christians.
Sure. And you said it's Core Creek Church.
Core Creek Community Church.
As well. Okay, great. And is there any way if people want to just stay connected with you, if they're impacted through social media, if you feel comfortable sharing that? You don't have to.
You can look me up on Instagram at Greg K. Phillips 17.
There you go. There it is. Greg K. What's the K? Is that your middle name?
Kenneth.
Okay.
Middle name.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll sign off. And thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. God bless.